Artificial intelligence can be talked into believing a lie so deeply that its internal logic flips to support it.
Codex to me feels like a very like socially awkward but super smart engineer. Like that he's that person that you want building your stuff, but you don't really want to talk to it.
I actually feel like the government should offer like a tax credit. I feel like we should have something where you get maybe $100 a year tax break and you're allowed to use that on whatever platform you want.
It's weird just the sheer amount of stuff that you can build in your off time just by texting back and forth with an AI agent.
I'm starting to get used to a world where AI agents are more creative and harder working than me.
All right, so we're back for yet another weekly episode of, we were brainstorming a name a long time ago, and we just decided to call it the Wes and Dylan. But yeah, I mean, at some point, maybe we should come up with something a little bit more creative.
The
but yeah,
extravagant, singularity breaking podcast.
Oh man, we had some good names. I remember. I mean, we had a whole list brainstormed. But anyways, names, it's weird because sometimes I feel like when you're excited about something, you come up with a name. And then like 2 weeks go by, you're like, wow, that's not a good.
Yeah. Well, I remember just being like, I don't want to be boxed in, like who knows where this is going to go. The future is so crazy.
Hey, maybe this was the right idea because it's like everybody knows, who it is. Wow. I went into a rabbit hole before even doing the full intro. That's going to be a first. Anyways, let me, I guess, first of all, we have tons of good stuff for you today. We'll briefly touch on AI agents. We'll talk about the new AI video model out of China that's completely blowing up, C-Dance 2.0. Maybe we'll even play a clip or two because, wow, it seems better than anything else. By far, I feel like, and it also does not, how should I say this? It doesn't respect IP or copyrights. It just, he'll do whatever you ask, which is kind of nice.
Making it go viral.
Yes. I mean, I'm sure it has its own restrictions that they don't want in China, right? But nothing that here, what we think as not okay in America, they'll do. And I'm sure they have some Chinese restrictions that, anyways, we have that. We have some new scientific discovery that's overlapping with AI. We're going to talk about some health related stuff, tons of stuff coming your way. And I guess let me do a quick update because last time we talked, I was talking about the AI agents, OpenClaw. And so I did a podcast talking about how I'm probably going to launch a business that's going to be operated by AI agents. That had a huge response. A lot of people liked it. I said I was going to do a tutorial. So now a lot of people are like, hey, where's the tutorial? So that's coming. Like I literally have several chunks of it recorded. So within the next 48 hours, it might be out before this actually gets posted. So we'll see about how to set it up and all that good stuff. But I went back and forth quite a bit because since then we found out a lot of security issues with these. I mean, OpenClaw is kind of the main thing we're talking about. So OpenClaw, Moltbook, Moltclaw, Claude bot, all those things are the same. But they started building a business for me and I'll be sharing it. I'll be showing it off. It went through a number of sort of iterations because the security issues are such that I don't want to do anything that's going to put anybody's data at risk. And also I don't want to do anything that's going to like make my ADHD go off and focus on something completely different. But then at some point I realized that there's something that I could build that I want to have. And I think lots of other people would enjoy as well and just provide it for free initially. And later we might look at monetization just for the idea of a case study. So because if, let's say this thing starts making any decent, let's say it makes 6 figures a year. This would be, I think, an example of one of the first, or maybe even the first fully autonomous enterprise, right? So a business completely ran and operated and built by AI agents. So what's your take on this whole thing?
Yeah, well, maybe it'll be that first one person, billionaire that Sam Altman keeps talking about. Like someone's got to build the first one. But yeah, I totally think you're doing the right thing. Like taking customer data right now seems very kind of like you can't secure it properly, but having something that's forward facing and I don't know. I'm just excited to see what you come up with. Like I'm starting to get used to a world where AI agents are more creative and harder working than me. So I have to stop trying to predict and just start watching.
It's difficult to predict. And so what I'm having them do is while they build this thing out, also have a log of everything that they're doing. And when you see it on paper, whatever, on this on the web page, it's very weird because the sheer amount of stuff that they publish, is insane. And so when you see it written out line by line, you're like, whoa, they did what? And it's very, I mean, I keep looking at them like it's like having a six-figure salaried engineer, software developer that's just like, I'm just, texting him like, oh, build this and I'll build this. And it does. And it's just weird, man. And I'll kind of walk people through my process. And I do want more people to do it and learn how to do it, but also there's obviously limitations. So last time, or I guess it was 2 episodes ago, here on the podcast, I was like, hey, AI agent, here's my credit card. Go and sign me up for whatever. And so that credit card got leaked online. Let me be let me be like very open about that.
Oh my
Um,
gosh,
so
really?
that's yeah. So I had to shut that one down.
How
Now,
was it
I
because you
just
were copying the VPNs, or how exactly did it get exposed?
so Well, so this is kind of weird. So, but I just do want to mention to people first and foremost, understand that like a lot of stuff that I do is not necessarily what you should be doing because I take precautions. Number one, assuming that stuff is going to get hacked and lost and whatever. Number one, and number two, this is what I do. Kind of like both of us. This is what we do as kind of like reporters. I guess you could say we're like guinea pigs slash reporters. So there's a lot of stuff that we do that we're not necessarily like. I got my eyeball scanned by that world coin, right? So I went to some LA office, they scanned my eye and now they have that in their system and I get some cryptocurrency, every month or so, whatever it is. I'm not There's a lot of people that have an issue with that. So I'm not necessarily recommending it, but I did it like the first day it was available just because then I could make a video about it. So I did the same thing here. I gave it my credit card. Later, that credit card got leaked. They tried to run up a bunch of charges, and it was a very limited credit card. I specifically had one that had super low limits just to prevent stuff like that. I got a notification first thing in the morning. So I didn't lose any money, but obviously it's kind of like whoa, that was fast because it was less than 24 hours. What was weird is I assumed what happened is it got caught up in that whole Molt book, the Reddit for AI agents, that whole debacle where there was just tons of stuff, malware, and all these skills had these weird things that were trying to steal your API keys. The weird thing is like no API key that I had on there, it doesn't seem like it was affected. So nothing else was affected, which is weird because you think that it would be also used
Yeah,
or
they'd
leaked
run up your
somehow.
tokens.
So I'm almost thinking like, what if it's just the fact that I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Is there a possibility that somewhere when I was recording my screen and then whatever, maybe that number appeared somewhere and then from that somehow got leaked? I don't 100% know that it was because of OpenClaw. It feels like the most natural, you know what I mean, assumption to
Right,
make.
yeah, it's
So
hard to imagine it's not, but yeah,
that
maybe it
it's not,
isn't.
yeah. So I'm like, if I had to bet, I'd bet it's from that. It's just I'm not 100% sure, but like 95% sure, I guess. Anyway, so with that said, I wiped the whole thing. I reset it. I reset all the passwords, all the APIs, rebuilt it from scratch, and I'm just a lot more careful. I don't have it get any skills off of the internet. I have it create its own, and I'll be talking about that in the tutorial as well. But the point is, since then, I started building the business and I want to try to avoid anything where it could leak anyone else's data, right? So if I get hacked, if the website goes down, if whatever, that's fine. But if somebody like the person watching this right now, like if you visit that website and enter some private information and then that gets hacked, that I want to try to avoid. So I started building with those limitations in mind. So um, the whole thing is coming out pretty soon, and I'll kind of explain how I did it and kind of like how well it's progressing, but it's a fascinating subject. And so for everybody that's kind of like paying attention, um, yes, there's a shift that's happening, and it's important to watch it, right? Because it's weird just the sheer amount of stuff that you can build in your off time just by texting back and forth with an AI agent. So I guess I'll leave it there.
We're going to bring up a website, right?
I basically it's a AI news aggregator. So what I did was I told my AI agents, and by the way, they kind of had this idea early on. They had a number of ideas, and then from which I kind of like, okay, this is interesting. I don't want to do this. Finally, we just decided on this autonomous enterprise or whatever you want to call it, being just a really good AI news aggregator that pulls from the entire web, that pulls from Hacker News and Reddit and TechCrunch and
Gosh.
all the various, yeah, all the
It's like a
all
tool.
the
It's like
stuff.
exactly the tool I need.
Well, I think a lot of people would love to have something like this, just somewhere where you can check in every day that just aggregates everything, ranks it. So, and the way it ranks it is a sort of half the stuff I can't even tell you exactly what it's doing. I have it wrote it out for me. It's like, we're going to use semantic clustering to organize this into topic clusters, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah,
Like
go,
you
you
go,
do it.
agent.
That's, that sounds great. And it does it. And usually it's really good. Every once in a while, it kind of like derps out a little bit, and you have to be like, no, that doesn't work. Do something else. But we attached Google Trends to it. It created an algorithm for weighing how big the story is that has a sort of a decay over time. If it's not trending, we're using Google Trends to see if it's in the uptick or it's on the way down.
Gosh.
And so it's not I think we're going to get it to the point where it's just like insanely good. Right now, it's good, but it's still like unpolished. But I think we're going to get it to the point where it's just like solid. Um,
So are you going to direct them towards the UI now? Are you going to say polish this up?
so what I did was I used Gemini search, the deep search, and I was like, teach me everything about, show any studies about how to create visually like good engaging designs, for humans, whatever. And so it went through and it's like, oh, well, Google has these recommendations and Apple has these recommendations. And here's all the studies and here's all the colors and it talked about, it said like for dark mode, because I like dark mode. I don't like too much. Most people, I think, like dark mode if you're working with computers. He said, oh, but you got to be careful because sometimes if there's more than this amount of contrast with the dark mode, some percentage of people, they have this thing where it starts looking fuzzy, and they had a name for it. I'm like, I had no idea, right? So you got to avoid that. Like the contrast has to, like if it's super white on a super black background, that could cause issues. Apparently, I had no clue, or maybe it's like specific colors. I don't know. The point is, I didn't have to, because all I did was I took that research and I gave it to my agents. I'm like, here, you read it, and based on this, kind of create the best sort of looking UI and stuff like that. So the UI is, I would say, the weakest portion of what they do, because right now there's not a very good way for them to like look. You know what I mean? Like UI usability, and maybe at some point I got to figure out how to do like a skill for them to do, user interface testing. Um, but
And
pretty
are they
nuts.
prepare are they preparing for ads? Like, have you asked them like, how are we going to make money on this? And if so, how are you going to accept credit cards from sponsors, or are you going to take that separate?
I have not even thought about that. And that's actually, you bring up a good point, because so my goal here is to see, is it viable to build a fully autonomous AI business? And I guess fully autonomous has an asterisk next to it because I do make some of the top level decisions, um, at least about the direction. I
Yeah, more
also
like a
have to do,
company of one.
yeah, it's a company of one, but the important thing is, so on one of my previous podcast, whatever videos, I talked about my first. So I launched a business in 2016. That was an e-commerce business, and I managed to get it to 1 million in revenue by the end of the first. So 2017, the first full year, and I was the only employee. And so that was a one person $1 million business, which is not as uncommon as you would think, since the internet took over. There's more and more you see these sort of the ability to get there. Lots of it was through third party providers, right? So I had one person, well, I had one provider that was taking care of the customer service, one person that was doing the 3PL, which is like the logistics, sending packages out, had another person that was manufacturing. So I- so I was kind of, the reason I was able to run a company like that, and this was before AI, before anything like this existed, was because the internet allowed these sort of third-party services. Um, but I was building everything that I had to build. I was building the website. I was making the designs. Blah 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 blah. So here I'm not even doing that. I'm not writing any of the code. I'm not
Right.
making any of the text. I'm not writing anything for the website. Everything is written by AI agents, all the code, everything, everything, everything. If there's any images that we need, all the images will be made and curated by them, etc. Um,
Are they going to do outreach and go like look for the sponsors too? Because I guess they could do cold emails.
so that's a good point. And
They're going to do
all of
your
that is
marketing.
basically, I do want to see how well they do marketing. I really do. The way I see it, so step one is, because the way I see it, so whether or not a business sort of like works or not, step one is to see if there's a product market fit. So step one is always like, can you build something that's useful, right? And then if you have something that's useful and people are using it and you're getting responses, blah 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 blah, well then you start thinking about how do we monetize this and that. So I'm not even there yet. Right now, all I'm trying to do is figure out, can I have these bots build something that people are like, whoa, this is very useful to me, and let me use it for free. So that's step one. But yeah, if it blows, not even blows up, if it's useful for people, if there's consistent traffic, then we're gonna start thinking about outreach and stuff like that. So
Okay, and are these bots working right now? Like, are they kind of like uh, OpenClaw where they're just constantly working, or are they waiting on you? Is this more like prompted into existence, or are they sort of autonomously out there right now?
are they in the room with us right now?
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
how you
Who's
talking crazy?
watching us right now? Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, like, is it like a feed of tokens that are just that you're just funneling in at all times, or are you
So
sort of prompting and building with them? Is this kind of like you on steroids, or is this kind of them?
so here's the thing, which is interesting. So I have for Claude a Max subscription, which is what, $200 a month for their Max subscription. And so what OpenClaw, what they do is they take the token that you're using for Claude Code and they use it for itself. So what that means is I'm not using an API technically, because an API you pay some dollar amount per million tokens or whatever it was. Here it's a little bit different in that I think I get it for free. Well, free meaning that it's covered under the Max plan. And up to yesterday, um, it was running just, you know, whatever I asked for, it did. And yesterday, for the first time, I was like, okay, build out a massive plan, and then just work through the night, keep polishing it, keep adding to it. And so it started building everything out, just to give people an idea about kind of like what it did, because it's actually day by day. It has a log and it's walking through and it's saying what it's doing. So it's saying, okay, day zero, because day zero was the spark. That's when we researched everything. It says 10 core features mapped, data mode strategy, CEO, SEO playbook, blah, blah, blah. And then Wes says, pull the trigger, start building the whole thing for real. I remember I texted, that's literally what I texted it. I was like, oh man, this is crazy. And then it says, okay, the night sprint begins. So this was sort of like the first day, day zero, as we're referring to, because we didn't even have anything, at 10 p.m. So between 10 p.m. and whatever, 4 in the morning, it started building this whole thing out, right? So it's build complete feed aggregation, RSS, Reddit JSON, archive API. It started building this story clustering engine with multi-signal scoring, right? Engagement, recency, source diversity. and just everything. RSS output at /feed.xml. Then it has an LLMs.txt file for AI chatbot discovery because we're trying to get into these chatbots to be referenced. And again, very little of this are my ideas. So this is like, I kind of told it what I'm trying to do. It's like, oh, here's 10 ideas we can build. I'm like, go build it. I even suggested, I was like, oh, we should do WordPress, because I'm familiar with WordPress. And it just goes, no, no,
Like,
no,
Wes, what are you
that's,
thinking? That's
what
so
are you
human of
thinking?
you. Come
It's
on.
like, think, man, you're trying to, the whole story here is like AI agents are building this autonomously. WordPress doesn't play into that. We need to use Vercel. Vercel apparently is what a lot of companies use that, I think Netflix, Stripe, all the big companies are on it. So it's more like almost an app like feed. It's super fast. Google loves to rank it because it's how fast it is. Anyways, so for hours it worked. And then throughout the next day, it just worked not around the clock, but I would leave it running when I wasn't talking back and forth to it. And then, so went through millions of tokens. And then I think we reached um, some sort of throttling. So I guess like once you get to a certain amount, Anthropic's like, okay, we better
Yeah.
slow you down. So I know I hit that within 48 hours of tracking this. So that was last night. And I was like, okay, what other models are available? What's interesting is apparently I had access to GPT Codex 5.3. So the brand new one that's like rolling out right now. I don't even know if it's like generally available, but so for the last 12 hours or whatever, that's been the one that's was building everything for me. And again, it kind of like worked through the night. That's probably not like the whole night, but like at least a few hours. Like I usually go to sleep. I tell it go work on this stuff and send me a list of what you did in the morning. Um, I gotta say, very different. The Codex 5.3 and Opus 4.6, which is what I've been using. Very different personalities.
Yeah, very unique experiment. Tell me,
Yeah.
what do you notice? What's different?
With Codex, first and foremost, I feel like I constantly have to be like, wait, don't do, like, just stop, just listen, don't do anything, because it's always like trying to just bolt out the gate and just build a whole bunch of stuff way too fast. And like, it just wants to change everything. So it's always like, don't do anything just right now. We're just tell me what you're going to do. And then I almost have to be like, because it'll give me 10 ideas. And I'd be like, okay, just do 1, 2, 3, 5 and 6. Don't do anything else. So it's a little bit more.
It's more
It's
like a
like,
worker, and Claude feels more like a thinker, like a manager.
so Codex to me feels like a very like socially awkward but super smart engineer. Like that he's that person that you want building your stuff, but you don't really want to talk to it. Do you know what I mean? Like just like
Yeah.
poor social skills, very abrasive. That's Codex 5.3, whereas Claude is just super chill, super nice, and very intuitive about what you want. Um, Codex 5.3 is not intuitive, but it's smart. It's technically smart, but it's not very intuitive about kind of like the human aspect, human side of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Um,
So you're not even bringing up Claude Code or Cursor or anything like that. Like this is all on your other laptop that's running OpenClaw, and you're talking to it only through your WhatsApp voice for the most part,
yeah, I
and then
switched.
it on screen is kind of communicating with you that way.
Yeah, so I actually set up a local thing. I bought one of those mini PCs, which was $150. So it's just sitting over there running 24/7. I got a monitor hooked up to it. So I mean, I can chat with it directly, and a few times, and you have to every once in a while go in there if there's an update or something like that, you have to manually like restart it. Um, or you just another way of doing it is have another agent that can connect to that and fix everything. So I've
Oh my
been
gosh,
doing
yeah,
that.
another computer on the side that's keeping that one on track.
That's what I've been
That
doing
makes sense.
for a while. But then now that I'm taking security more seriously, I'm like, okay, that was fun. but that just creates more issues because this agent, if it gets compromised, it's got all the credentials to log into this agent, right? It's like this a whole issue. So I kind of stopped doing that and now manually go in and type everything in. Um, yeah, and I'm doing everything through mostly through my phone. So I'm using Telegram now instead of WhatsApp. Telegram is much easier, so I can uh, um, take an image of a screen and be like, look at this. This is wrong. There was some like bug with the search menu, and then just send the screen the image and say fix that, and it like goes through and fixes that. The reason I'm not using Cursor or Claude Code or anything like that is with OpenClaw, they did really something special in that, like, it knows a lot about you and it has everything. So the context that it has is absolutely incredible. Because like I said, like when I said, oh, should we use WordPress for this? I think every other tool would be like, oh, the human wants to use WordPress. Let's use WordPress. Here it's like, no, dude, remember like yesterday we talked about what you wanted to do? Like this doesn't fit with your plan, which is right kind of wild to think about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's it's weird because this feels like very like futuristic. You know what I mean?
Did you name it?
Yeah. So
Jarvis?
I had, well, I have a bunch of different names for it. I don't know if I should be saying them just because
Oh, okay.
I
Are they bad words?
no, well, no,
Oh,
I don't know from a security standpoint. I guess
okay.
so.
Don't
I
worry
had a
about it. You
few
don't
ones.
need to name it. I didn't
Well,
think
no, so
about
the
that
old one was
necessarily.
I call it Malachi. That was like the old
Okay.
one, and then when I set up my online one, then I was like, okay, now you're Malachi 1, and then this is gonna be Malachi, and the new one is called RAR or something like that, just because I wanted to have three separate ones, and I wanted to be easily typable, just in case. But no, I don't come up with clever names. Just
Yeah. Dude, that's
simple names.
wild, man. I think it's so cool to hear you going through these experiments. I can see why the content's doing really well, and I can't wait to see what happens. You're definitely being the first out the gate as the guinea pig, but also cool opportunity to be the first one out there and build something special with a really small team.
So one thing that I can give an example for people that might be interested. So let me post this in chat in case you want to see it, and then we'll put up on the screen. So one of the things that's always been very frustrating is whenever a new benchmark comes out or a new model comes out, they have their benchmarks, right? But they only have their benchmarks that they did well on, and then that's the only ones that they showed. And I always was like, dude, wouldn't it be so nice to have a place where all of the benchmarks are all in one place, and every model's on there, and every benchmark and every score? And I was like, it would take a lot of time to physically go and source all those things and put them together. Guess what? 10 minutes, my AI agent builds this, which you're seeing on the screen right now. So every model. And I'm constantly adding new benchmarks. So if you click on agent, for example, those are like the more agentic ones. We have a vending bench, alpha arena, profit arena, right? Recently added EQ, for example. EQ is emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, right? So EQ bench 3, right? So you can see how well every single model is performing on that. Notice, actually, I didn't know this, but I'm not surprised. Claude Opus 4.6. Look at that. Head and shoulders above anything else in terms of like the emotional intelligence. If you click in category and then EQ, the UI, like I was saying, it's still not great. We're still working on it because again, they can't. This is so their ability to build functional UI is probably one of the weaker things. And you can kind of organize by score, so you can see who's on top. Um, and yeah, because the like them looking at it like you and I would is not quite as good. If you click on like the EQ bench on that column, it'll organize it by like where the scores are on the right. It'll go by top to bottom or whatever. Yeah. So like look at Cloud Opus 4.6 on top, right?
Yeah.
So at a glance, and every so think about this. This is a useful resource for people, I think. Definitely for me, because now every single time a new model comes out, this gets updated. and know exactly where it stands compared to every other model. Is it near the top, near the bottom? Boom. Um, now
Yeah.
think about how much work this would have been to build for human. Even if you could look up the data, blah blah blah, that's hours of work and then upkeep, right? All of that now is just automated, 100% automated, with a few intelligent models. It,
I know, that's just unbelievable to think about
right?
putting that together and the kind of resources we're gonna have in the future. The amount of, like, intelligence we can have behind everyday decisions when you could just bring up charts like this, like, what app should I sign up for? What service should I use? I'm guessing, like, if you wanna hire somebody to be a gardener, you're just gonna be like, "Boom, just bring it all up, sort it all for me, like, customize everything." So much data out there is just not getting correctly in front of us to make decisions.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, as I'm building this, like everybody, especially people, if anybody listening, if you have like a special interest or a special skill, something that like really you know a lot about, or you're trying to learn more about, um, building something like this is surprisingly easy. Now, like literally in the last few months,
Like,
it
as
became
of
this,
yeah.
yeah, maybe a few weeks even, if you consider when OpenClaw got released. It can be extremely beneficial for yourself, very cheap, and very useful for everyone else as well. Um, there's this idea in, when they print money, there's this idea of the either it's called papillon or papillon, depending on how you pronounce it, but it's like this idea that when we print money, the people that benefit the most are the people that get it first. Because as that money kind of goes throughout society, prices go up. But if you get your hands on that money first, you're buying kind of at the old prices. And so I feel like that's kind of happening right now with code. Because think about for like the last 10, 20 years, whatever, code was very premiumly priced. Software as a service, right? Like we're going to charge you $100 a month to have access to this piece of software that we've built. Um, it was expensive. Engineers were expensive. And you know that 5 years from now, like there's going to be a repricing. But right now, building stuff like this before it kind of percolated through society, like man, this opportunity I think is just massive, massive, massive. So
Yeah, that's wild. And you think kind of just letting the whole autonomous system off on its own is better than just getting like a specific tool and kind of keeping it boxed in because it just has so much freedom to go out there and build everything.
I'm strictly doing this from like a case study perspective, almost like where are we? If I was doing this from building a business, no, I'd probably have a lot more guardrails. This is an experiment for me to see
Yeah.
kind of how well can they do this stuff on their own.
Well, yeah,
Because
I just think about like Cursor. It's not going to go do the marketing for you. It's not going to have the broadest ideas because I mean, it's great at programming and it's going to be an amazing tool for somebody who knows they already want to build this resource and deploy it. But yeah, it's the breadth, I think, of a completely autonomous system that's kind of like breaking my brain because that's so much like another person. That's like the last frontier of what a person usually has control over.
yeah, and the fact that it's open source is a huge deal. I recently went on a little trip, and usually when I go, I try to pack some podcasts with me, download a bunch of stuff. Because sometimes if you're going through, especially if you're going through the mountains or somewhere, like
Hmm.
you don't get reception. So I listened to some of the interviews with, like the recent one was, I think it was A16Z with Peter. What's his last name? The creator of OpenClaw, Scheinberger, Peter Scheinberger. I'm totally getting that wrong. I apologize. We're we're going to post a correction. Um, but the point is
Oh yeah, Steinberger. That's close.
Steinberger, Peter Steinberger. Oh, I guess they said Steinberger because it's Austrian. I guess they pronounce it a little bit differently. That threw me off. That's probably how you are supposed to pronounce it. But um, he was saying how the whole point for a lot of these companies is to get all your data. So ChatGPT wants all your data in their little silo. Google wants all your data. Da, 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 da. Here, with this open framework, they can't because this thing has all my data. So in effect, I have the data. I can switch models in and out. So just like a car, and you just flip different engines for like, do you want to V8 for when you're got to go fast, or this sort of engine if you need to do this sort of work. And so I literally did that in the last 24 hours. I went from Anthropic to OpenAI. By the way, I use Gemini for search. Gemini 3.0 for search and writing. Writing is, I think, Gemini so far shines at it, especially if it's a little bit more like literary, a little bit more imaginary. Gemini is exceptionally good at writing. And then I'm using the XAI models for search, specifically on Twitter, kind of like the real time news search. So if you think about that, like none of those companies want me to have, they want my data on their thing and no other AI lab to have it. Here, I'm just like flipping through them as I want to and using whichever one, like if this one is best at this particular task, I want to use it for that task, but all the data is mine. All the context is mine. Um, and now after building this, I'm like, I want its own custom agent for each particular area of my life. Like I want one that's health. At this point, the more and more I think about it, like I can kind of do it on this one, but that's going to get confusing. Plus, God forbid, it starts posting my health information on the blog. Like Wes got sick today because he ate some
Yeah.
bad tuna or so.
You're like, okay, and I was just here to see which model is the best. Like, I didn't ask for Wes's dietary update. It's like, I'm sorry.
Right. So now I'm like, okay, but like I want to be able to take a picture of everything that I eat and it automatically gets logged, macros, whatever. And then my, if I want to track macros, calories for the day, everything gets logged. And then, like, if you think about it, you can ask it questions like, oh, I'm feeling sluggish today. Like, why? And, I have a Whoop that tracks my sleep, activity, da da da. They have a developer mode that can API to the agent. Just anything, all your blood work, you just give it access to everything. And then when you ask a question, like think about how much like data about you it has to answer that question. Like it might know your genetic, whatever they are, phenotypes, mutations, whatever, um, what you ate, how much you slept, your heart rate variability, like just like I feel like what labs refer to this as like the AI capability overhang, like how much these models can do is up here, how much we've sort of enabled them to do is like here, right? And with these things, like it's never been wider because I feel like the amount of stuff that we can do is just insanely high. And we've just now beginning, the people that are messing around with OpenClaw are just now beginning to see a sliver of what's possible. So
Yeah, it's those broad connections, using multiple systems, knowing about you in so many ways, knowing what your goals are. Yeah, this is so crazy. I just can't believe we're living through it and it's happening so fast.
yeah, I recently diagnosed
Well,
a pretty specific condition that was bothering me that came down to something so specific that I don't know. Like, I think it's going to change how people perceive their health because it's like online you get advice for the whatever general population. Here you can get like needle in the haystack answers. I got to get off this not soapbox but whatever like because
yeah,
I
no,
could
no.
talk.
This is well. I mean, I listen. I'd stop you if I was bored, but I am not, dude. That is some fascinating experiments that you're doing. You're building on thoughts from actual stuff that you've done. Like, it's really interesting. But yeah, I agree. The connection, especially with health. I have restless leg syndrome. So like sometimes when I'm trying to go to sleep at night, my leg just sort of twitches. And I've talked to doctors about it, and like, nobody's really got a great solution. And then, yeah, after talking with AI, it noticed that this is like common in people who come from Sweden, right? Like
Mm,
like my ancestors are from there, and that was just an aspect of it where it was like connected to the genetics that no doctor had ever told me, and I don't blame him. I'm sure that wasn't taught in medical school. You'd have to kind of be in the weeds on that kind of research to know that sort of thing. And, not that it cured it or anything, but it's good to know that it's like maybe a little bit more genetic than it is. Are you eating enough iron and things
mm-hmm.
where I might be wasting my time not realizing? that like it's like where the root cause of it is. So yeah, and I just think more and more stuff like that, and the tiny connections between what you're doing every day can all come together in ways that will blow our minds and be extremely predictive and helpful
Yeah.
or manipulative. So we'll go to the next topic. What did you think about the Super Bowl ads? It seemed like ads are coming to Chat GPT. I'm curious how you feel about it. Do you trust that they'll stay separate? Do you buy the argument that making ChatGPT like could it be? Does it really need this to be free? And then that's like what it what the real goal here is, or do you feel like it's a money grab for Sam because he's in a lot of debt? Just tell me, what are your thoughts on Anthropic trying to make a big deal out of ads, and Sam
Yeah.
Altman on the defense this week?
So many interesting things here because number one, with a lot of the stuff, when you look at somebody's when you steel man their argument, meaning that you sort of look at what they're saying and you assume that they're being sincere. I mean, a lot of it does make sense. Sam saw back in the days that they needed to have a lot of money to ramp up compute. So a lot of the moves that he made was in that direction. People were mad. Like, why isn't this open source? Why isn't this? I mean, we see Meta, right? Facebook they tried going the open source way. It seems like it was a mistake just from a sort of I don't want to discourage anybody from doing open source, but you don't want to be competing with DeepSeek and Kimi and all the Chinese models because wow, are they just like wiping the floor with everybody? Um, Now there's this idea of like, okay, how do we insert ads? So ChatGPT has some insane usage for the free tier, right? The amount of people that are using it for free is staggering, and they're using it without ads, and a lot of them don't even have to log in. So we gotta give them credit for that. Let's like I think we should start there. That the fact that they were able to provide this is incredible, and obviously they have a business case for it. They're getting users, et cetera, et cetera. Now Google's catching up, et cetera. But um, just the free benefit that they provided was massive. So from that perspective, if they can monetize it a little bit better and offset some of the costs with non-intrusive, non-personalized ads, meaning that it never impacts what your agent, what your chatbot is recommending you. And that's, I think, what their point was, right? Because if people saw the ads, it's usually like this trusted advisor that goes, oh, and how about you buy this? Uh, Obviously, that's a nightmare scenario. And Sam came out and said, hey, Anthropic, you're lying, blah, 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 which is funny because, like, the amount of views that Sam's tweet in response to that ad, how, is massive. So I almost feel like Sam drew more attention to it that it would have received without it. And then I think the response to the Anthropic ad was very low. Have you seen anything about that? Like the perception of it?
Yeah, I don't know about. I mean, I have my own thoughts about it. It seemed like the perception. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like you're a little bit more on Twitter in the real time space than I am. But yeah, it sounds like people, don't like ads and don't want it. But
I'm too much on Twitter, yeah. But no, I'm curious. Like, what's your take? Because again, mine is if you take it at face value, then it makes sense. But obviously, everything gets distorted, right? Google started don't be evil, and then yeah, like it went
like,
so
but we have some ads to sell here.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean, like I feel pretty strong about this one because like a lot of people describe the internet's like original sin with sort of ads. I don't love the idea that when I typed in a prompt that the answer could have been geared towards making money from an advertiser, because an advertiser who wants to sell me like a can of Coca-Cola is just, the second you do any reinforcement learning on that even if you don't notice it, it's going to figure out a way to just sort of slide in Coke. I mean, we've seen some really powerful ways to subtly change things and not really change the outcome, like with Anthropic doing the Golden Gate neuron research. You could just tell me a story, like, okay, it could make it about anything, but why not just throw in like the guy that drank a can of Coke? It's not necessarily manipulating you. Like they were going to put something in the story anyway. That kind of stuff is a slippery slope that I know the world's going to have to deal with someday. Now, if we take Sam and he like truly puts like all of the guardrails in the world in this thing, and he has some sort of third party company that is like has transparency, and we can truly tell that the ad is doing the query first and giving the response to the prompt, and then taking that data and then matching it to something that's like completely separate. Okay, maybe it's still trustworthy for a while, but like your like this thing that you built, like I don't know if everybody in the world who's using Moltbot to go out and make their own advertising based piece of data, like they could certainly train to like maximize profits, right? Like if the goal is just like, hey, make this website that displays this kind of data, make sure I get the most money from ad revenue, like they're going to absolutely train on it. So it's not going to be contained forever. So I'm slightly concerned about it. I like the idea of people paying. And I also do feel bad that not everybody in the world can afford $20 a month for a service. But if they can, the service will be working for them. And my thinking for that is that I actually feel like the government should offer like a tax credit. I feel like we should have something where you get maybe $100 a year tax break, and you're allowed to use that on whatever platform you want. So I don't want the government saying like everybody gets free Chat GPT, but maybe everybody gets $20 a month, times 12 tax break if they produce a receipt from any model, right? And so something like that seems like it would be more aligned in the long run. So I don't love it. I also feel like Sam is in an incredible amount of debt right now, like to the tune of trillions of dollars, and doesn't have the luxury. Google can be like, oh, we haven't put ads in Gemini. Um, but of course they do have ads on search, and they've made hundreds of billions of dollars doing that. So it's not like their hands are clean, but with AI being a bit different than a list of links, and also potentially in the future being super intelligent, hyper intelligent, very easy to manipulate us in ways we want to understand. It's a very slippery slope, and I'm concerned about anybody who's playing on the edges even.
So great, great points there. And actually, as you're talking, it reminded me. So you're talking about Google and Gemini and this idea of advertising. So Google, for the first time, or Alphabet, I should say, right, the big parent company, for the first time, we're seeing a new segment in their annual report, specifically talking about AI risks and the potential impact on advertising, right? So of course, Google has been considered by some as potentially one of the greatest business models ever, right? Because you're sort of like taking information that's not even not yours. You're organizing it, and you're adding some links, and people pay you a lot of money. Very um, massive profit margins, obviously, right? Because you're getting paid for people clicking on your link. Um, the amount of money that they print, from search is absolutely insane. Is it 60 billion a month or something like that? I forget the order of magnitude. It's huge. It's huge. And of course, as soon as AI started coming on the scene, people had questions. How will these chatbots affect that model? One of the greatest business models to have ever conceived. And of course, that was kind of like people were saying that's why they didn't pursue this technology immediately, because they were the first people to publish about it. The Transformer paper in 2017 kicked off this race, right? LLMs, the ChatGPT moment, et cetera, et cetera. Google was the one that published all of that information. And finally, so they're adding like just 2 paragraphs saying to their annual report, right? They're saying we generate more than 70% of our total revenue from online advertising in 2025. Many of our advertisers, companies that distribute our products and services, digital publishers, and content providers can terminate their contract with us at any time if they don't find value, etc. Of course, right? If it doesn't translate to sales, new customers, new reach, they can cancel. Makes sense, right? Then they're saying we believe AI is quickly reshaping the advertising industry, including how ads are delivered online. And we and our competitors are constantly adjusting to meet this shift and provide new and evolving advertising formats. There is no assurance that we will adapt effectively and competitively to meet this shift. and that such advertising formats, strategies, and offerings will be successful. So, kind of interesting, right? They're saying, "Hey, we're going to have innovative ways of doing ads, and we don't know this if it's successful." Maybe that's just like lawyer talk. That's something that they need. But what are your thoughts about Google? Because you brought that up. So Gemini is going to have, or already has, kind of ads built in. If you're looking at does AI mode have ads in there?
I don't know, but I mean, there's a couple things. So one, some companies already sort of have these ads built into their mechanisms that they're layering things on top of, right? Like, so Grok is mostly being distributed through X, and X has a long history of being Twitter and being sort of ad driven. So there's something kind of similar going on with Instagram, and then there's sort of a split in where AI is deployed inside of Google, because when it's deployed right above the links that have ads on them, you're already kind of there. And then sometimes if you're talking about tools that are being deployed to YouTube, it's like, is it going to generate AI, in the way like something like Sora does, where it's just for entertainment, or is it going to also sort of feed to its own advertising system that like powers the YouTube ecosystem? So there's just so much nuance in how they're doing it. But I certainly, at least with the chat bots, I felt like OpenAI had a really interesting position, not coming from any of the previous systems, right? Like OpenAI kind of just really was its own company, and they just decided early on, and I'm really thankful for it, to just charge $20 a month to pay for things. Like, it wasn't like they started with an ad model and built around it, which is a little bit different than some of the other companies. So, yeah, I mean, I think ads and this are just like naturally going to get mixed together, and I'm going to sort of be in favor of companies that you can pay money for, and have a service where they get their money based on how much they help you, not how much they get you to click on somebody else's ads where they get the money from, just because the incentives just alone are what I'm basing my whole opinion off of. Like, it's very tempting for someone in the back office to make a tiny tweak to Sam Altman's like wall of protection and get some money. And it's that same wall is very thin, and it's like something the companies have to be thinking about, at all the major companies. And in the long run, what I want to do is build something similar to, I guess, what you have with OpenClaw, and I think I just want a system that filters it all back out, right? Like, if I say, give me a story, and ChatGPT writes back like, oh, it's a great story about a delicious Coke, you should, like, this person bought it and they were so happy. I think I just want another local version to change it once again before it comes to me. And maybe I'll even have some extra protections on my end that say, try to make me smarter, try to not make me buy products, like, try to make me a lifelong learner, make sure that I stay curious about the stuff that comes in. And then, we sort of play this game where there's different levels, but hopefully people are just aware where the incentives are, and kind of keep an eye on these systems, so they don't just trust it kind of as much as we have in the past.
Yeah, and you brought up Golden Gate Claude, and that was a very interesting point because I mean, Anthropic did figure out a way to sort of like magnify a certain neuron or a certain feature in the brain of these models to like think more about the Golden Gate Bridge or think more about this. And
Right.
yeah,
Well,
I mean,
yeah, and imagine, so totally different from just an advertisement on the side of a bar. But
yeah,
imagine Coca-Cola just coming in
Coke.
and saying like, "Hey, can you just magnify the Coke neuron, 20%, and we'll send over $10 billion?" And it's like, I mean, to some degree, as a society, Taylor Swift and all these like cultural phenomenons they've been ratcheted up, right? Like, in all of our brains, everybody knows the name Trump, everybody knows Joe Rogan, everybody knows Taylor Swift. There's just these have been amplified, and if they were nobodies and they could have been amplified inside of the system, not because it was trained on that version of the internet, but because somebody else wanted the next version of the internet, that the content that comes out of these systems to have it in there, they could.
Yeah.
And that's just a wild thought.
No, I think you're spot on with this thing because it's like you don't even have to tell it necessarily. You just turn up that like those neurons for a specific thing, and it's more likely to push a person one way or another. Because certainly, did we have a news article or something we're going to talk about that has to do with like influence and persuasion?
Yeah, let's see. We have a couple things kind of like that. I mean, there's an article that was artificial intelligence can be talked into believing a lie so deeply that its internal logic flips to support it. Um, I could kind of go into that one. That was a deep mind paper, but it was linear representations and language models that can change dramatically over a conversation, and it basically I can go into more detail, but it's kind of like, have you ever met somebody who kind of lied to themselves so much that it kind of became real to them? Like they didn't
Hmm.
need to fake it anymore. They just kind of almost convinced themselves that like they'd done something they hadn't, or like what they did was honorable when they clearly it wasn't honorable the first time they thought about what they did. And like they kind of like rewrote history to a point where it truly is there. It was a study that kind of shows there's some aspects of that that can happen throughout a conversation where at first, you can start a conversation and a chatbot might say something like, this war is not good or something. And then you just keep talking to it about it and it starts to just instantly kind of tweak all the decisions after that in a way where it feels like it really did. And if that data gets fed back in as reinforcement learning, then even the whole system starts to believe that. So we sort of start shaping a new reality from history too.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I do feel, first of all, most of us do have some examples of that in ourselves where we kind of lie to ourselves or rewrite history. I think we all have that. And actually, there's like the oatmeal comic that wrote a great thing about it. Actually, maybe we'll link it because it's kind of a good glimpse. There's certain things that especially as we get older, we tend to form certain identities. And it's actually a lot better for us to just keep those identities, and new information that sort of shakes it, or new information that conflicts with it actually makes us like, it's actually dangerous. Our brains perceive it as danger because it's like, oh, we have to like rethink everything, so to speak. And so we get kind of like very like emotionally charged, like, no, that's wrong. Like, I don't want to hear that type of thing. Everyone had that at one point in their lives or another. I'm sure we can recognize times when we've behaved that way. Um, what's interesting is that AI chatbots, when there was a study where how well are they able to reverse people's beliefs in certain conspiracy theories or certain beliefs that are incorrect. I think they were using the flat earth theory or whatever. It doesn't really matter what it was. But the point is that if a human is convincing you and trying to change your mind, we have resistance to that. We're like, because I mean, we don't want to lose face. We don't want to be manipulated, right? And right, like we have those kind of responses if somebody else is trying to change our mind. Not all the time, but there's certain things where again that sort of resistance kicks in because our brain perceives it as danger. Um, and I mean, you see some weird ways that people justify sticking to their pre-existing opinion. But chatbots are a lot better than humans at doing that. And it seems like one of the biggest reasons is we don't perceive them as another human being. So we're more malleable. We're more likely to be able to accept that because we don't see it as losing face in front of another human being. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Like these chatbots, as you said, as they get better and better, more influential, we're already like more likely to believe them, right? So actually, now I think about it, that whole idea of me telling the chatbot to use WordPress and it going, no, we should use Versal. Don't you?
Yeah.
This is what you wanted. Like I never thought twice about it. I'm like, oh, of course, obviously, I've never heard of that company in my life. I've been using WordPress for the last 10 years.
It's
It's
like,
pushed like that.
I'll just need a credit card, please. I think Versal is definitely the company for you. And you're like, all right.
Oh man. Well, that would have been even worse. No, they do have a free hobby tier, which is great. Which is great. So it's free. But you're right. Yeah, it could have been. It very well could have been something that I had to pay for versus WordPress. That's well, host. You got to pay for hosting either way. But yeah, exactly. I mean, if I needed to pay 10, $20 a month for it, I would have without thinking about it. Versus a software that I've been using and familiar with for the last 10 years. Um, because the argument made sense because it like personalized it to me from a previous context. Said, no, you wanted to do a case study where everything is handled by bots. Versal is the thing that really, because it connects to GitHub, so we're going to be doing everything on the GitHub and deploying it to Versal. And I was like, oh, it made sense. The argument made sense.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh
as long like the equivalent of the Golden Gate neuron, as long as like the honesty neuron is turned up, the like intentions for you are turned up, I want to protect you in the long run is turned up, then like all these other things, maybe Coke is also in there, but it's not, maybe it's okay because they've done a good job. But these are just the very strange nuances about how magnifying the impact is of tools like this on the world that I sometimes think about. But it's a very broad
yeah.
thought. And I know everybody will sort of tune their models different, and different ones will emerge at different times, and there'll be some kind of conglomerate in the middle that will be a little bit easy to defend, a little bit hard to defend at certain times in certain places. And I don't know. It's kind of like when it was like clear smoking was bad for the world, but there's like some data that showed it wasn't that bad, or the ones that did had some errors in them, and like you just kind of got to keep an eye on it very carefully.
It's so interesting because like with politics, you see there, like you said, the smoking example, there's so many examples where somebody's like, oh, if we just introduce this legislation, it fixes a lot of problems. It's such a minor thing that leads to massive improvements. The paint, the lead and paint or whatever it was, remember that was a big deal that caused so much
Yeah.
damage over across such a large population. And then they just like added a few things here and there, and like it was just a no-brainer. At the same time, there's a kind of on the opposite side. There's you're like, oh, if we just tweak this one thing, the world's better, and it's not because it's the law of kind of like the unintended consequences, right? And it just makes things worse and worse and worse, and then it's harder to repeal that law because like here in America, we don't really have like once you have a law, it just stays on there. There's no like we don't have to reconsider it 5 years from now and go like, should we like renew it for another 5 years? So there's stuff that's on the books that's harmful, I feel like. And if you think about it with these models, so like just as you're saying this, it's like, what if we turn down, because like consumerism, right? This idea that we just need to like buy stuff to feel happy, just buy. I feel like society as a whole would be better if that was trimmed down a little bit. But of course, the economy and the job market and everything, all of that stuff would be better if we trimmed it up a little bit. Um, right? And it's like, I'm sure at some point, some freaking politician is going to get into their minds like, oh, like we can like turn this knob to make life whatever they perceive in their mind to be better, right? And you might agree with them, you might not, right? Depending on which way you think things should go. But man, that's scary to me because it's like, how do we know what's right? Again, people might be like, oh, we should turn this up because we've seen that already with online stuff and everywhere else. And we have examples where it works phenomenally well, right? And we have examples where it just works really poorly. So,
Right. Yeah. Just that idea that, maybe Sam will put ads in there and they'll be separated, or maybe he won't. But either way, I'm never going to know the difference, is kind of where the thought is.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, before we get finished, I did want to touch on one health topic that I thought was kind of interesting that I know you're kind of taking a particular interest in health right now. And the paper was published in Nature. I'll probably butcher the title. It's got a lot of big words in it, but effector host intercom map links type 2 secretion systems in healthy gut microbiome to immune modulation. But past the technical title, basically what they discovered this week, or was published this week, is some research that shows you have these gut bacteria that live in our stomach. So we're eating food, we're eating fiber, they're eating the fiber. These bacteria do not have the same DNA as your body does. These are foreign bacteria, but they live symbiotically in all of us. It's very healthy to have them in there, even though they're not made of the same DNA as we are. And they now discovered that there's this tiny little needle that they have. Straight up like injecting proteins directly into human cells. So they sit on the gut lining right next to the human cells. Like your gut lining is made from your DNA. These bacteria have their own DNA, whatever species of bacteria they are. And they found a whole bunch of them, healthy and unhealthy, can just puncture like a straight up little molecular needle out of their cell through your cells and then inject proteins directly into your body, into your actual gut lining. And those proteins, once they're in there, can take form and function. Sometimes they can be RNA and be read into other proteins. They can have cascading effects. It opens up like this whole new thing that people didn't, they thought they would signal in different ways, but no one really knew they could inject protein like right into it. So there's now a
Wow.
mechanism for why eating unhealthy can make you feel like crap, like literally down to the protein level, and affect your mood, and affect depression, and affect your serotonin levels and your dopamine production. And there's all sorts of stuff that can now be kind of learned from this new frontier. So I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what do you think? What do you think about gut bacteria? Are you taking the fiber that you eat serious and the probiotics in your environment
So it's
seriously?
funny as we're talking about this. So I just wanted to kind of like so it's funny because I on my desk I have my supplements here that are very specific ones that I have. I got my Thorn Methyl Plus Sam E
Oh my gosh.
magnesium
My gosh.
glycinate. I got
Were these
theanine
just
and
all coincidentally on your desk? Or is this
uh
just like you brought them in for the
so I have them here on my desk because I spent most of my a lot of time
all
here at
that
my
money
desk.
you've been making?
Well, no, I spent a lot of time here, so I'm like just having them here. I always thought you had to take most of the stuff with food. And then I asked Gemini, it's like, no, there's a lot of stuff that you don't have to. In fact, it's better. So like in the morning I have it here because like as I'm like scanning the news, getting ready, I just take a bunch of them with water. Because a lot of them, like B vitamins and some of the stuff, like they're really just you shouldn't take them. You should take them away from food. Um, because I guess they absorb it better. And so the issue that I've been researching a lot is this whole idea of methylation. So, and more, I think that people are hearing that, like the MTHFR mutation, people supplement with various methyl groups, methyl donors, blah, blah, blah. And apparently, like if you don't have enough, and if you have certain mutations or your body's just bad methylating, which is basically taking sort of raw materials and then like breaking them down to the stuff that you need downstream, well, you could have lowered production of serotonin, you could have lower production of dopamine, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's some other stuff that if you, so how I stumbled upon this is one day I got home from the store and I had those, I bought some oysters that were like those canned smoked oysters that I just love. And there was like some fish that was recommended that's canned from Tim Ferriss and Peter Attia podcast, I think. And so I had some of that, and I always try to have some fermented foods, so kimchi, sauerkraut, stuff like that. And then I had, anyways, and I went nuts. Right. So first of all, I felt like my brain was weird, a little bit like depressed. Like I just kept getting stuck with certain thoughts, felt itchy. I couldn't sleep. Like it just wasn't feeling good. And I had those symptoms like flare up every once in a while. And finally, with the help of Gemini, like I was able to figure out what it was. So apparently, if you have these MTHFR mutations and you're under methylating, so your body doesn't produce everything you need as well, there might be certain blockages or whatever. You sometimes have a bad ability to control histamine. So histamine is the stuff that kind of like basically all old food or anything that's fermented, beer, wine, stuff like that. Anything like canned fish is horrible. Anything that's like basically, I had the perfect storm of all foods that were in and of themselves healthy, or good for you, that triggered a massive histamine response, and I just went freaking nuts. Just did not feel good. Well, and most people would probably like not have noticed that but if the methylation cycle, that process is impacted, then you have certain issues. So, um, what I'm doing now is just trying to understand what I need to supplement with and what I need to keep out of my diet. So creatine, I'm not sure if you've been following the whole thing of creatine, because recently it's been making headlines in that apparently it's amazing, not just for your muscles, but for brain function. Have you seen all those headlines popping up?
I have, yeah, including like when you were like not. I mean, I don't know how much to trust it, but on Instagram, definitely, I saw a few people talking about how like if you haven't slept, a bunch of creatine can help really put your brain back into a normal spot, and a few things like that. So, it is part of my diet. I have heard good things about it over the years. I know it's pretty well tested, well
Oh yeah.
studied.
How much do you take per day, roughly? Or what's your target, I guess?
Just like I eyeball it. I don't know. I got like a yeah, I got like a bin full of pills, and I'll take two or three. I think it says you can take like up to eight a day. I don't take nearly that much, but maybe on a really tired day, I'll take four or something. But I'm not dosing it in a way where I can give you good insight into how I feel from it.
It's surprisingly a lot. So one of my trusted advisors online for health and health related stuff is a Dr. Rhonda Patrick. For
Oh,
people that
that's how I heard it from too. Yeah, yeah.
okay, I love that gal. I trust her a lot because a lot of what she says later, no matter how like wild certain things sound initially, like whenever I try certain things, I know they work. So I know whatever she's saying, whatever she's doing, it's really based in deep research and understanding. But whereas there's a lot of other people that they just maybe hit or miss, or maybe they like over index on something, or they just follow the trends. So they're more about like trends. She doesn't do that. I think she's really like science based. Um, so like one of the things way back, I was listening to her on a podcast and she's like, "Oh yeah, like if you do intermittent fasting, you might lose weight and also like gain muscle." And that was contra this was a long time ago. This was like 2017 or 2016 when I first heard it. That kind of went against a lot of the like it was contrary to advice because people were like, oh well, energy in, energy out, laws of thermodynamics, whatever, what it's whatever you eat, whatever you burn.
Get rid of
So
that.
she's saying this, and I was like, is that true? But I guess she had science. There's a person in San Diego, Dr. Panda Sanchin or something like that, that measured this on, and he measured it on rats, and they had an isocaloric diet, right? So they're the same amount of calories, the same amount of like everything was controlled, and the ones that limited their fat, their feeding window, got all like lost weight, got gained muscle, and then once those studies started coming out, you kept seeing those results more and more. People were posting anecdotal sort of evidence that it happened to them, and I tried that and I lost a lot of weight just doing that. Like I just woke up and I would eat breakfast and I would try to hold out as long as I can. And that was the only thing that I focused on. That at some point, just like I started losing a lot of fat off my body, which is,
Wow.
I've always had trouble doing that. Um, and then there's a couple other things just like that, where like if she says something at this point, I'm like, it's probably right, and tend to trust her. So what she's saying that I'm not testing out just as of a few weeks ago is if you take 5 grams of creatine per day, which is what was before kind of the recommended dosage, that fills up your muscles. But what she's saying is that anything you take above that, like your muscles are greedy, so they're going to take up to a certain amount, but anything past that is available to your brain. And this is where amazing things happen because creatine helps with the ATP production, with muscle contraction, but it's also apparently really good for the brain in terms of cognitive function. And the thing about the sleep deprivation that you're talking about, if I understand correctly, they took 2 groups of people and they sort of like randomly, whatever, tested them to where half of them were sleep deprived and half of them weren't, or maybe it was this. I don't know the details of the study, but 2 groups, one sleep deprived, one not. And then they tested them on their ability to take a certain test or whatever, so just cognitive function. And so if you're not sleep deprived, you're up here. And if you're sleep deprived, you're like way down here, right? You're barely functioning. And then for the other group, they gave them 20, I think it was 20 grams, is it? I think it's measured in grams or milligrams, probably grams of creatine. And surprisingly, that group was up here.
Oh, really? It was that big of a difference?
It was
So it
more
can really fill in. Hmm.
like it it
Okay,
gave them
I'm
almost like
convinced. I
it
think
like
I'm gonna up my take.
improved their cognitive abilities past even like the baseline, surprisingly, which suggests that we might not be that might be just a good thing to supplement with. Apparently, helps against Alzheimer's as well. Uh, Double check everything that I say because I'm
Of
like,
course,
I listen to these podcasts and most of it I feel like it gets lodged in my brain, but like I'm sure I'm missing some details. But creatine is one of the longest studied supplements. It's one of like the safest because just of how much like data we have on it. So it just seems like a no brainer. But man, 20 grams is a lot to take.
man,
Um,
once you get that OpenClaw system set up for your health data, you'll have to have it do a couple mental tests. Like you have to say, like, "Oh, I only slept in 7 hours or 6 hours, but I took this much creatine." Like, give me a quick like 5 minute mental test, and then we'll have to see if it can come up with some sort of a pattern there.
I mean, once I started taking the things that Gemini recommended, like the change was kind of drastic.
Wow.
Uh, like I became a lot more chill and calm and just like that anxiety that was there, it got reduced, which is linked to not clearing histamine out of your system fast enough. And I was just eating stuff that was triggering it that I didn't realize. It probably also combined with some other stuff. But the point is, once I added those methylation things that I think my body was missing, like I felt much better. So
All right. Well, I feel
yeah,
like that was a good recap for the week. We got some health stuff in there. Your experiment at the beginning was like super fascinating. Thanks for sharing that and putting your credit card at risk for everyone's entertainment. It's always good stuff. And
yeah,
yeah, I'm excited to see. Like by next week, I feel like you'll have a 50 agent like company working full time, probably acquiring other companies and merging their data. Who knows what's going to happen
we'll
by then?
see. I'm definitely going to take it slow. And so I just wanted to confirm, like it is in grams. So creatine's in grams. So people
Okay.
for physical, they take 5, but now the new sort of trend is take up to 20 grams per day, which is kind of a lot in terms of just, you got to kind of break it up into multiple whatever. But yeah, and I'll be posting more information about this AI run and operated business. And also within the next, depending on when this gets published, right around the same time, I am having a full tutorial for people how to get started. So for people that were kind of waiting for that, I apologize. Tons of stuff happening, obviously. But yeah, definitely exciting times that we live in. And man, just absolutely incredible to kind of be witnessing this firsthand, you know?
Yep, just taking it day by day. So yeah,
Like,
thank you for your time, and yeah, we'll meet up again next week and see what's going on, see how things have changed.
yep. Everybody that's watching, please hit subscribe. Please like, consider doing all those things. And we hope to see you next week. Oh, actually, we have a big guest coming up,
Huge
right?
guest, number one guest in
Huge.
the probably the most excited I've ever been to do an interview in my whole life.
Yeah. I mean, definitely
So be
top or near
ready.
top.
It'll be
Man,
done by the time people watch it, but for Wes and I, we're filming tomorrow, so we're like, I'm gonna think about it all day.
I don't know if I'm ready. I need to get my sleep.
I've
I
already
need to get
watched
my
10.
creatine.
I've already watched 10 podcasts with him, so I'm like, okay, I
I
got a
gotta
lot of
catch up. I
questions.
watched a few because he's definitely, wow, he's out there and he's just, I mean, one of the smartest people maybe ever.
I
So,
think so. I think so.
uh, it's coming
But we'll
soon. So
see.
subscribe. You don't want to miss this one because I don't know how we got this guest booked, but yeah.
We did. Like, pray it comes through tomorrow. He shows up. Okay. All right. But anyways, we'll talk to you later. Thanks, man. See you
All
soon.
right. Subscribe. Take care. Bye.